guys, welcome to Money Mindset Mojo, and today we're talking about parenting on purpose. And what I'm talking about there, yes, that's a bit of a fancy there. I'm talking about parenting with a plan, parenting with intention, parenting with empowerment, parenting with a purpose in mind. We've got a stellar crew lined up today because modern parenting really does need more mindset, less catastrophizing. We're going to begin to explore how the brain really interacts with your skills of parenting, how to stop trends, how to build healthier kids. Because I don't know about you, but it seems like parenting is getting harder. Or maybe the thinking behind parenting is getting lazier because there's more availability to free babysitting. The TV was the babysitter of old, and then it became the internet, social media, or even some type of AI. But can you really farm out parenting? And today we have in the lineup Dr. Kat Lindley. She's a family physician. She is a global health advocate, challenging institutional thinking. Man, I love people that challenge institutional thinking. And she focuses on challenging it around wellness and development. The awesome Cory Suggs is here. He's a veteran entrepreneur. He rebuilt his life after depression. He shares some insights on fatherhood and mental resilience. Emily Tweets is here, cultural commentator, mindset humorist, and I love her sharp takes on just modern life and parenting and all those silly myths that we live by. And without further ado, we have Josh Stye, Army veteran and a parenting veteran. He's a mental health advocate that does a great job, a really great job blending his own faith and his personal convictions with advocacy for healthy families. Guys, it is so great to have you here today. Lovely to see you. Hope everything's going well in your part of the woods. There's Josh. What's your shirt say, Josh? You can't scare me. I have a wife. Is that what that says?
It says, "You can't scare
Oh
me. I
yeah,
have
same
two
thing, right?
daughters."
You can't
It was
scare
a
me. I have
it was
daughters.
a Father's Day gift.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. Well, the scariest things in life is having kids. Well, folks, I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much. We're going to spend about the next hour and 15 minutes empowering these guys on healthier parenting. So let me take it right off the bat here, and go to Dr. Cat. Dr. Cat, let me ask you a question. You have a bit of a global reach. You talk to lots of folks, but what do you see is maybe the parenting problem around the world today, or is there a parenting problem? Maybe I'm just making this stuff up in my head.
I think there is a problem. I think one of the biggest issues is, especially younger parents, I think they're trying to be friends to their children. And sometimes you actually have to wear the hat of a parent and say no. So I think more people need to learn how to say no.
Learning how to say no. Yeah, I always say that a healthy no, parents listen up, get your notepad out. These folks are going to be dropping some gems for you. But I would say that a healthy no is always better than an unhealthy yes. And we'll talk more about what that is today. But Emily, what do you think about this thing on parenting? Do you see a parenting problem, particularly in our nation today?
Um, I was just laughing because I'm like, I say no probably too much sometimes. Um, I think our big issue, if we, it just, I mean, it's all relative to each family. I don't know. I think just being present with our kids. I think it's so easy to be distracted. I'm guilty of it myself at times. I also think there's this like feeling. I don't know. I can only speak from my experience, but there is this feeling, I think, because of like social media and like we're now seeing way too much of what everyone else is doing to like do everything and fill their time with like every activity. And like I get into arguments with my kids when they're like, I'm bored. I'm like, do you know how much time I spent bored as a child? We had to figure it out. Like my parents sent us outside, shut the door, and said, don't come in until the sun goes down. And I think that I know I struggle with like mom guilt and feeling like, am I doing enough? And am I taking all these things? And these people are on this trip and these people are doing that sport. And it can feel like a lot of pressure. So I don't know. I think that's just my experience with
Yeah,
being a
it
parent.
really is a new day in parenting because kids don't know how to be electronically independent. Kids think that if they don't have this thing in their hand, it's almost like there's been an amputation and they don't know how to function without it. But Josh has a really interesting story, and I'm going to tell you, here's a spoiler alert. Josh said this in a space that I did the other day, and it was an audio space, right? It was an audio space, so he couldn't see my face. But literally, Josh said what he said, and my mouth went. I got nothing. I mean, here I thought that I was, the big baddie of parenting and all that. Like, I'm like Emily. I just said no a lot. I literally told my son, I'm going to make you an expert at not getting your way. You stick around, I'm going to make you an expert at not getting your way. You know why? Because that's what life hands you. You parents out there that are giving your kids your way, they're going to be living with you till they're 70, right? If you don't teach your kids how to not get their way, they literally, I say that word too much, they don't, they won't know how to engage with real life because real life, just the physics of life, are not going to follow suit with you giving them their way. Life for your kids is going to be a wake-up call unless you teach them how to not get their way. And, it says, I am very quiet, others are very loud. Let me fix that. Thank you, Dr. Christina. Gang, tell me how I'm coming through now. Am I too quiet? That has never been
You're better
said on
now,
this.
Doc. You're better now.
I'm better now. That has never been said on this planet. The first time it happened here, I was told I was too quiet. You're the first people in my whole life, well over 50 years, to say that to me. My wife is going to tell me stop hanging out with those people. Creon, it's good to see you here, my friend. Let me see if I can adjust other people. I think I have the interview guest up too loud, so let me turn you guys down a little bit. No offense, but Cory, speaking of being too loud, do you think that parents are allowing the world to be too loud and we're not loud enough? That parents aren't loud enough in their kids' ear, that the teaching, healthy teaching from parents is getting drowned out by all the, cue my favorite word, all the kerfuffle of the chaos of society. What do you think?
What do you think about the fact that maybe the parents are also caught up in that same thing, right? Like we're pretty inundated with everything that is around us, and it's hard to teach your kids something as you're learning something also, So you're really seeing a direct reflection of that. It's I think it's very, very important we just teach our kids how to think for themselves.
Yeah, I put up in the post for YouTube. We're live streaming through YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Mindset Masterclass, and on X. And by the way, you guys, you parents that want a deeper dive into parenting strategies, hop over to Mindset Masterclass. It is school.com, SKOOL, school.com /mindset, school.com /mindset. Sarah, thank you for keeping me in the loop on my audio. I appreciate that. And we'll get Emily back here. And Emily, there you are. Good to see you back. But yes, please repost the stream. Raul, thank you so much for sharing that. You guys repost the stream. There are other parents out there that need to hear this information. So today we're going to be talking about parenting versus programming. And based on what you said, Cory, I think that we spend too much time indoctrinating kids. I think we spend too much time telling kids what to think, not teaching them how to think. So I'm very interested in how you guys today, Dr. Kat, Josh, Emily, and Cory, would recommend having honest, genuine, normal conversations with their kids. Because I think some of this stuff is both taught and caught. And so, no matter what you teach, Corey brings up a good point that if you don't have an environment where it rubs off, and parents, how does it rub off? It rubs off by exposure. Healthy parenting really is a bit like a virus, but poor parenting is also a bit like a virus. And kids are going to catch what they're around. And so, if they're around poor behavior, if they're around you're on your phone, let me ask you parents a question. Do your kids ever see you put this down? Do they? That may be a very convicting question. But let me go to Josh and see what Josh thinks about it. But Josh, do you think that there's, and I'm not trying to prime Josh or anything, but honestly, if you disagree, do you think there's a parenting problem in our country, the United States, or in the world today? What do you think?
I definitely think that. Audio check, am I okay?
Yeah. I'm gonna crank you up just a little bit. You sound a little bit low to me, but I think you'll be fine. Go right ahead.
It sounded like we had Freddy Krueger in the space early. There was so much noise, and Christina messaged me as you were opening your monologue there. It sounded like literally Freddy Krueger or somebody was moving.
Freddy
It,
Krueger's nails.
Like they were
yes,
moving
to
furniture or something,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
yeah.
It's moving day. Moving day on Mindset Mojo.
But no, great, great point there. Yeah, parenting was a little different. Emily was talking about this as she was sharing um, that my parents, when I grew up, they were like, "All right, eat your breakfast, come back for lunch, and get back outside and go do something." Um, and there wasn't that babysitting of like sitting me down in front of a television or a screen and babysitting for them, keeping me occupied and busy. They said, go out and do something. And so I took a very hard line on that. Um, I have two daughters. They are young adults now. One is 24, and the youngest will almost be 21 here in a few months. Um, and they got cell phones when they turned 16, and because I wanted to communicate with them. If they're going to be out on the road and they got their driver's license, they need to be able to communicate. But I told them I drew that hard line, Dr. Heath. I drew that hard line. I said no social media until you're 18.
That is
And
a really hard line, Josh. Man, hats off to you, my friend.
well, it went a couple of different directions. That was a hard one to navigate. But I was on social media at that point because I grew up, in the 80s and early 90s, before internet was even a thing. And, um, we didn't have social media back then. We had pagers. That was the best thing that we had. We had pagers. So if we wanted to get a hold of somebody, and then you had to hit the payphone to call somebody that was paging you. But, we didn't have social media. And, um, but I had watched because I have a bunch of nieces and nephews that are a little bit older than my daughters, and as social media became, on the scene, um, uh, I watched what it was doing to them. And then I would hear my daughters come home from school and say, well, such and such said this and such said that. And there was so much drama that was surrounding young individuals and social media. I mean, I think there was even, I don't want to say it specifically, but I think there was even somebody that committed suicide, a young child that committed suicide because there was cyberbullying. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to expose you guys to that. But but I said, well, they knew what social media was. And I said, you want to get on, Facebook or whatever. Here's my phone. Here's my account. If you want to go look around, explore, that's okay. I don't want to like hide it from you. But they asked me and asked me, Dad, why can't I have this? I said, not till you're 18, because I want you to have some exposure to it before you commit to it. It's like going to driver's ed. You have to go to driver's ed first before you get your license. You don't just turn 16 and walk into the DMV and get a driver's license. You have to have some exposure and learn how to drive appropriately. So that's my take on this. But I think parents tend to. I've watched this. They just hand their kiddo an iPad, log them into an account, and they could just sit there and veg out and ruin their eyeballs. um, versus actually, hey, let's go out and take a walk. Let's go to the playground. Let's go out and do something other than zone in on. God, there's so much content. Yeah, you could live your entire life and never see everything that's on the internet. So,
Well,
anyways, that's my
and by the
take.
way, I thought that you're going to say you can live your whole life and not be on the internet, and you would live a good life. People did it for millennia. Uh, the internet is kind of like VCR tapes. Some of you are too young to know what a VCR tape is. We were at my father-in-law's house the other day, and he passed away a couple of weeks ago. And we were cleaning the house up, and he still has a VCR and VCR tapes. And my son picked up a VCR tape. My med school student son picked up a VCR tape and said, "Dad, how do you put this in?" How do you put a VCR tape? I said, "Oh, how I would have loved to have that." I'm going to turn the camera on and just videotape you asking me that question. And I said, "The little door goes at the back. The little thing that comes up, yeah, that goes at the back. The little reel things, they go at the bottom. That goes at the back." But yeah, people lived before that and did just fine. Hitch Slap High IQ panel, I completely agree. Dr. Cat, I and Hitch did a great space, and we're like the Three Musketeers, I think. I think we did a great space, and we got to do another one on something we agree on, or maybe something we disagree on. It may be fun if we disagree. But I'd like to go around the space here in a moment and ask you guys, Emily and Cory, Hitch can't let it go. Hitch, I'm not going to put that on the screen. I'm not going to put it on the screen, man.
Oh, I'm going to say it though. EQ is not fake, Hitch. Love you.
Look at that. Yeah. Hitch is opening yet another barrel of worms on my Mindset Mojo, and I would jump on it. But Waylon says he disagrees, and I'm going to, Waylon disagrees with everybody. Okay. I'm just going to put it up there. I disagree. He disagrees. I'm just messing with you, Waylon. Good to see you here, Waylon. Good to see you here. Kim, Patriot Sarah's here. But my question I'd like to ask you guys is, in a moment, is how do you manage pushback from your kids when you're setting these rules and you're setting these boundaries? Because I would have loved, Josh, to be a fly on the wall with how you and Dr. Christina decided that, because that seems like a freaking tsunami of a decision that most parents would just be terrorized to even consider. But before we do that, I'd like to go to Dr. Cat. You mentioned suicide. By the way, parents, I do therapy every day of the week, and I speak plainly. When tap dancing around issues is not going to make those issues go away. And so a little suicide thing is, if you think your children are thinking about harming themselves, ask them the question, are you thinking about harming yourself? If it's more serious, you have more data, you see more things, then ask your kids, are you thinking about making yourself die? That's a question you will not be able to ask standing before their casket, so ask the question. And I did a space where we talked about bullying, and I think Dr. Cat brought that up, or no, Josh brought that up about the bullying. And kids don't know how to think effectively about these things. Don't expect that your kids know how to think effectively about these really big issues. Have a conversation. Now, they may not talk. I was talking with my son's girlfriend yesterday. She rode with me out to the farm. And, my son, he processes a lot of things inside the vault of his skull. I do too, like father, like son. I work on things and work on things and work on things. Hitch asked me a question in the DM, and I've not answered it yet. Hitch, why have I not answered it? I'm still thinking about it, because big, important questions, I like to think about them for a long time. I'm just not, quick on the draw to answer really, really big questions. And a lot of kids will be that way. Your job is to provide an environment, an atmosphere. And I think I will guess Josh and Dr. Christina have that kind of environment in their home. But I want to go to Dr. Cat. What kinds of problems, wellness speaking, if you're talking about wellness of kids, or wellness of families. What are some of the wellness issues, Dr. Cat, that you see in the world today that families are struggling with? What do you think?
Just from the medical standpoint, I would say that our system has really evolved into the system of healthness and not wellness. So most people, when they go to the doctor, they go because they have a problem, they're sick, they're trying to find some kind of resolution to something. They don't really come necessarily to the doctor when they're feeling good. So you kind of have to change that mindset. You have to try to teach people to live in a state of wellness. And when it comes to kids, one of the biggest things we can do as parents and as clinicians is talk to really parents about, is your child sleeping well? What is the type of diet your child has? Do they have regular bowel movements? Are they stressed at school? Is there something that's bothering them? Are you having these conversations with them? It's kind of interesting, as a physician, I'm totally used to taking care of it. Pretty much anything that comes my way, right? If I can't figure it out, I have a friend that knows how to do it. I know where to go. But when it comes to your own family, it's a little bit more difficult. And I was a little bit shocked when a few years ago I found out that my oldest actually had a huge problem from the mental health standpoint. At the time he was having issues with being bullied and things like that. And then my daughter, about 6 months ago, also had another issue, but it was some of those things are probably they're kind of normal for that age, right? But it's very difficult to see it as a parent and not recognizing it as a clinician, right? Because we don't recognize these things necessarily in our children because they're our children. I'm supposed to be a parent. I'm not supposed to be a doctor at that time. So I would say that kids give us little clues, and they tell us things, but it's up to us to pick up on them. And sometimes, as a parent, it's difficult to pick them up, and you need someone else to see it. And this is where this wellness part comes in. Sometimes you just need to go to your doctor when everything's okay and talk about things that could be happening that you're not aware of.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. Sometimes the last person a kid's going to talk to is to the parent. And there are many reasons for that, but let me give you guys a graphic for one of those. If you accept that some of these things we're talking about, being bullied at school, being bullied on the internet, developing negative thoughts about yourself, negative thoughts about your self worth, if you accept that that is a deep issue, okay, it's a deep issue, it's way down here, then how would you get down to that deep issue if you don't have surface level conversations? Conversation, communication is there to have a deepening effect. You don't plant a seed and it just burrows its way into the depth of the soil. You have to dig down. And so the more you communicate with your kids and you have a status quo, where in our home communication is the status quo. We talk about things. You can, take your time to talk about it. You can beat around the bush. You can express your opinion. A lot of kids get punished for just expressing their opinion. Listen, let me kind of dive off the deep end. Let's just say that your kid has a different political view than you. Let's just say that you despise the other political party. Well, how you handle that discussion is going to determine how much they talk to you about these deep issues. Because if they can't say, hey, I'm a diehard Republican, or hey, I'm a diehard Democrat in this house, then why would you expect for them to talk to you when they're thinking about putting a rope around their neck, or putting a drug in their body and making themselves die, or putting a bullet through their head? How would you expect for them to be unable to disagree with your religion, but then they're going to share with you their deepest thoughts about themselves and who they are? It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Yeah,
And
Dr.
Dr.
Cat, go
Heath,
ahead.
thank you. So I'll give you an example with my own kids. I do a lot of speaking, a lot of leadership roles. I'm on a school board. If there is a hat to wear, I wear that hat, right? And my kids see that. So my oldest son, I was asking him, does he have a girlfriend and stuff like that, right? He's in college. You know how it is. You ask your kids these little things. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me? He's like, you're really opinionated. And you're right. And he goes, you really like feel strongly about things. So I didn't want to say it yet because it's kind of new, right? We don't realize that our kids see the roles that we have, and then they try to adjust their behaviors to fit into our world, where it should be actually opposite. We should be adjusting our behaviors to fit in their world.
I love that, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because let me, they say confession's good for the soul, so let me confess live on this live stream. I asked my son one time about his friends coming over, and he said they don't want to come over because they don't want to be judged. What? What are you talking about? What he was talking about was I'm a very passionate guy. I talk about things that are meaningful to me to let people know that, hey, this is meaningful to me. So I'm very passionate. So, parents, we have to explain to kids what's going on when we're passionate. The presence of my passion in this direction doesn't mean I'm asking for you to give way. I'm showing you that there are things in life to be passionate about, and there's ways to have conversations about these things that are fair, that play well with others, that give others some airtime. And so, yes, don't mistake my passion for criticism. It's not criticism. But see, kids don't have the mechanics to think through those things. We parents, it's up to us to sculpt and help our kids understand when you see me being passionate about this political party or this religious belief, that's because a well lived life is full of meaning, and meaning brings with it passion. A well lived life is full of meaning and it brings with it passion. So we have to kind of share with kids, why do you have that look on your face? Well, because I'm really thinking about what you're thinking about. I'm really interested in what you're saying. Why is your face red? Because this is a very important topic to me. And so don't expect your kids to read your face. Don't expect your kids to read what your body's doing. You, as our second grade teachers told us, parents, use your words. Use your words. And so what do you do, guys? And go to Emily. What do you do in the household when you get pushed back from your kids, Emily? I'm sure they're just not mindless zombies. I'm sure they've got to disagree with you every now and then. What do you do?
Thanks for asking. That's a great question. I am, is everything working? I had to move because
Yep, you're good.
there we go. Okay. First of all, also, I just want to piggyback. I'm really such a big advocate for like an open door policy in my home with my kids because I don't know, I feel like my generation, like us Gen X, millennials, whatever, we grew up with, at least I did. I grew up in a home where like we didn't talk about things. And so I was left to figure them out on my own. And I was very wrong about a lot of the things that I figured out on my own. But I'm currently raising two daughters, one who's 8, one who's 13. So I am in the pushback era. It's really fun. Gosh, what do I do about pushback? That's a great question because I don't always have the answer for that. A lot of times I just try to, well, sometimes I don't handle it well. Sometimes I'm like, I say the things my parents said that I'm like, I'm your mom and that's why. But I do try to have conversations with my kids. I'm trying to foster relationships where they understand where I'm coming from and why. And it's not just ruling with an iron fist. I want them to understand. I want them to understand like the value of things and why things exist and why we do things the way we do. I live in an area that's fairly affluent, and I sometimes feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle because it is a lot of like keeping up with the Joneses. And um, I don't know. Like, I'm really working on having kids that are grateful and humble. So a lot of times I'm explaining why, if why I'm saying no, like, or explaining that, like I've got a kid who, we could go to the beach and go do all the things on Wednesday, and then on Thursday they're like, well, what are we doing today? Why aren't you taking us to do anything today? And it's like, I want them to understand that not every day is Disneyland, you know what I mean? And to also understand that, like, hey, we did all this yesterday, and some days, like, we're going to clean the house, you know what I mean? So I don't know if that really answers the question, but
It does. I love that. I love that. Now, Waylon brought something up that I think tags well with that. He said his daughter married into a cult-like family who has very different political views than I do, so now my daughter doesn't talk to me anymore. I get this a lot, parents, and let me kind of go from the extreme back to some things that most parents deal with. Uh, Keep doing the healthy thing. If you're in a situation where your kids have disconnected from you, keep reaching out. Don't bug the crap out of them, but when it's a holiday, reach out. When it's a birthday, reach out. When there's an opportunity, reach out. When they come to your mind, reach out and say, hey, just you're on my mind, just to let you know I love you, and reach out. And so don't expect to hit a home run with every swing, right? Don't expect to hit a home run with every swing. A lot of things like huge oak trees, they take much chopping to fell the oak tree or whatever. Not that we should be cutting down oak trees, but whatever. And so take your time, take your time. Things happen through the journey of life. You don't get to the destination without taking a journey. And when you're trying to reconnect with a kid, keep reaching out. If you have a distant parent, do the same thing with them. It's a mistake I see people make over and over again. Well, they won't answer my call. Well, what does their not answering your call have to do with your continuing to call? And I will continue to call until, let me think, what will be the time limit on that? I would keep reaching out until I was dead, until my heart stopped. I would keep reaching out and keep reaching out. And Waylon said he did that. Yeah, man, keep up the good work. Keep on doing that. And yeah, some of that's really, really weird. You have a very sad situation there. My heart goes out to you, but don't stop. Don't stop reaching out. I've had parents that have reached out for years. I've had parents that reached out for decades. I had a patient that came, it's been about a year and a half ago, that had not talked to their mother in, I think it'd been a decade or something like that. They decided to reestablish a contact, so don't stop reaching out. It really is a ongoing conversation from the side of the parent. Even if the kid lives with you, organize your home where you can have an ongoing conversation with what I call the Seinfeld method. Don't think that you've got to get a base hit every time you have a conversation. What made Seinfeld famous is it was a show about nothing. They talked about nothing. And so just chit-chatting keeps the soil fertile. There's a piece of farm equipment called a cultivator. It just breaks things up. It just breaks things up. Just get out there and keep breaking things up. And I have parents will say, yeah, but my kids argue with me. Well, of course they do. What would be the value in your kids standing on their own 2 feet and facing a parent and arguing? Is that disrespect? Now, make no mistake, in my household, what I say is ultimately going to go. So I didn't want my kid to think that this is a debate. A conversation is not a debate. We're going to conversate, and then at the end of it, what I said is going to happen really is going to happen. But from here to there, yeah, we can talk about that, because I want you to understand some reasoning. One of my friends on X, Golden, she put up a great response to this live stream today, and she said, I think a big need is parents telling kids why they're doing what they're doing. Now, Golden, you didn't know this, but you tiptoed into the world of motivational interviewing. If you're trying to start an exercise program, you will not be successful doing that unless you find a really good reason to do it. If you're trying to stop drinking alcohol, you're probably not going to do it unless you find a really good reason to do it. If you want to stop eating honey buns, same thing. You're not going to stop unless you find a really good reason to do it. By the way, I'm still looking for that reason myself. I'm taking suggestions. But give your kids a really good reason to do it. Give your kids a payoff. What's their payoff? And I don't mean money. I don't mean money. I mean doing some Socratic questioning. How might you keeping a messy room work when you have a wife or a husband? How might you imagine that works if they're an OCD neatnik or something? How might you imagine that would work if you don't know how to keep a clean room and then you have kids that also don't know how to keep a clean room? How might that translate when you've got that big corporate job in Manhattan or somewhere and you don't even have an organized office? My CPA, no offense to my CPA, love the guy, really nice guy, but when you walk into his office, it looks like a tornado just went through there. He has paper stacked and flung everywhere, and that interferes with his success. It just does. People walk in, that says a lot about you. And so, yes, your kids may think that you're the devil, but some of you have heard me say this, but I'll say it again because it's one of my favorite movie scenes where Bruce Wayne Batman is in a prison investigating the criminal side of life, and he meets the prison bully, and the prison bully says, what? The prison bully says, I'm the devil. And Bruce Wayne Batman says, you're not the devil, you're just practice. So yeah, parents, tell your kids, yeah, you think I'm the devil. Look, I'm not the devil. But guess what? You're going to meet him. You're going to meet him. How are you going to be ready for that? If you can't even make your bed, clean your room, how are you going to be ready for that? One of the most successful things that you can teach kids to do is make their bed. There's actually a book on it. It's called Make Your Bed. I do it every day. I don't have to. I do it because it adds some structure to my day. And so when you get pushback, one of my suggestions would be have a conversation, and you're not going to get it right the first time, but dig for what might be a payoff for this kid. And it's going to be 1,000 different things for 1,000 different kids. So you got to figure that out. But Josh, back to you. When did you and Christina get pushback on this cell phone, social media thing, and what'd you guys do about the pushback?
Oh, we definitely got pushback. She is my oldest daughter, and um, excellent student. She obeyed everything, and she went behind the scenes and decided to get her own Instagram account. Well, I told her from the get-go when I gave her a cell phone that I wanted to know her passcode, and I get the opportunity as a parent to look at it anytime I want. Um, and she said, okay. And I never exercised that right. It was just more of a kind of like a coaching, I don't want to call it a threat, but it was like I could at any time, I could say, just hand me your phone. I want to see what you're doing. And because I did trust her, but I needed to have that level of responsibility and weight on her, just to help keep her, on the correct course. But I started getting my cell phone bills, and I was like looking at it. I'm like, man, all of a sudden, her data usage went way up. I mean, like skyrocketed. I'm like, what's going on here? So I, nonchalantly started probing and said, hey, what's going on here? I'm noticing this, Alex. Is something wrong with your phone? And I eventually got her to confess without asking her directly, which was pretty cool. I think I did a good technique there. Um, because I didn't want her to feel like obligated. I wanted her to come to me and trying to keep that she could trust me in that open line of communication. Now, there was definitely some pushback on that. It was a very uncomfortable situation once she did confess, and I'm like, hey, do we need to take the phone away? Okay, shut it down for now. This will come in the future, but let's shut it down. But she did get very mad at me. Um, the other thing that I was thinking about as you guys were talking, um, and how do we communicate with our kids as they're growing up? So As a parent, from, 0 till early teens, um, there has to be a little bit of protection and discipline. Um, and like it's yes and no sometimes. And I'm going to tell you, no, you can't do this. Or there's a consequence if you don't do this. But I've learned from my oldest daughter, because I was very strict. And she kind of rebelled. Well, not kind of, she totally rebelled. And uh, like serious, I won't get into it today, but um, with my youngest, they're 4 years apart. And um, I learned as a parent because I didn't know how to parent. I've never raised daughters before. I mean, I tried the best that I knew how to do. Um, and it really broke my heart. And it ended up working out okay. And my oldest and I now have probably the greatest relationship ever. And it's awesome. But the one thing that I started working with my youngest on is what you were talking about, Dr. Heath, is critical thinking. I started practicing, um, not telling them what to do, but asking them what they want to do. And then I will say, well, because you were talking about politics. I mean, my daughter just voted for the first time, my youngest, in a political election. I said, here's why I believe what I believe. But I never put any pressure on her. I said, well, what are your core values? What are your beliefs? I don't care how you vote and whatnot, with faith. You know, we grew up in a fellowship and a walk with God. I never forced that on them. Well, I did early on, but I try not to force that on. Okay, you don't believe in God? You want to believe in Buddha? I don't care. But you tell me why. I want them to critically think why they're making decisions that they're making. Well, why do you want to buy this new car? Why a Honda and not a Toyota or a Chevy or a Ford? Why? Justify it. Let me know what you're thinking. Um, and so I tried to apply some of these principles, and I'm going to go biblical here real quick, and then I'll close mic. Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to teach these guys principles that they will carry on for the rest of their life and then maybe put it on to the next generation. And we're all growing because, like I said, I don't know how to be a parent. I know what it was like to be parented, but that was that dynamic, and I'm trying to improve and grow. But like today, um, I'm what, 47 years old. I call my dad every day. So after this chat, I'm calling my dad. I call him every single day and say, Dad, how are you doing? What's up? What are you doing today? And it's just conversating, but he teaches me still. I'm 47 years old and I'm still a
Hmm.
child
Hmm.
and he's still teaching me. And so, but yeah, so I call him every day and
That's
yeah.
awesome.
And yeah, so I'll land there.
No, that I have a question for you though, and I'm not looking for an echo chamber. I truly don't mind anyone disagreeing with me, but I have parents that talk to me about. They'll say, "I don't want to push religion onto my kid," and I always ask, "Well, do you push toothbrushing onto them or not?" you know,
Mhm.
or is that just up to them? I get what they're saying. I think that parents have become, and this is my own bias, right? That parents become too hypersensitized to the news media and whatever else that they think they're
Mhm.
doing something wrong by saying, "Hey, kids, guess what? We're gonna hop in the car and go to church." Well, I don't want to
Mhm.
go to church. Well, you probably also don't want to go to bed on time, and you probably also don't want to brush your teeth, and you may not also want to go to school, and you may not also want to follow the rules of the house. And so I don't particularly agree with the thing out there is, there's something wrong with saying, "Hey kids, we're going to church." Now I do believe that there's a point at which kids are graduating into their own agency, okay?
Mhm.
Agency, free will, being able to run your life. That ain't at 8. That ain't at 16. Look, you can't sign contracts at 16. You can't join the military at 16. With parental consent, you can get married at 16. Um, well, that's a good idea or bad idea, but there's things that you just can't do when you're a kid. And one of those is no, you don't get to choose if the whole family is going to go do this thing, which is not illegal and it is not immoral. You don't get to choose not to do it. Now, a lot of my colleagues in psychology would excommunicate me from the profession for saying that out loud. But Josh, what do you think? Am I maybe I'm off base? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you got to lead by example. Kids learn by example. And so, when it comes to like faith and religion, hey, this is my core belief. Yes, we're going to go to church Sunday morning because you're coming with the family. And, you can't force anybody to do anything. But I mean, you can, with parent-children relationships, you can make them, do whatever. But,
Yeah, we're gonna
for
go, and
them,
your butt's gonna be in the car.
yeah, yep, get up, get dressed, let's go. Um, And I was that way. And it took me a long time because I was like, no, Dad, I don't want to go to church today. I don't want to go to church today. And I would give pushback there. But now, as I got older, I learned everything because I was paying attention, but it had to become a reality to me.
Yeah.
Um, there had to be that salvation experience to like, oh, now I see clearly now. Now it's my drive. My dad no longer had to ask me to go to church. I wanted to go.
Hmm.
But it did require that initial, you're going.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would never have,
Well, it was
probably done it.
it's kind of like trying cauliflower, which I refused to try cauliflower until about 2 months ago. I thought that cauliflower was of the devil, and I'm just joking. But I tried some, and I wound up liking it. So how do you know you don't like something until you try it? And oh, look at that beautiful puppy dog, Emily. Who is this?
That's Hank, and he really wants to be a part of this
Well, Hank is
conversation.
welcome on the broadcast
Come here.
anytime. It's so good to have him. How do you spell his last name? His name, Hank?
Hank, like Hank
Hank,
Williams.
Hank, okay. Hank, I thought you named him after a ghost. In the South, we call ghosts Hanks. But Hank, what kind of dog is Hank?
He's a pit bull mix. He's a pit bull.
Oh,
Oh no,
he's
now he's shy.
beautiful. He's beautiful. He looks like a big baby.
Yeah. He's a big baby.
I bet
Yes,
he's a
he is
big
a big.
baby. And so yeah, back on our topic there, I had to Hank had to give Hank his due. Hank needs his 5 minutes of fame. But parents, let me share one thing with you about what Josh said. But I don't want to. Now, why would you expect kids to never say I don't want to? That is a fairy tale. That is a fairy tale. You'd have to drug kids up a lot where they never said that. And I don't recommend that. And I'm sure Dr. Cat wouldn't either. But when kids say I don't want to, my response that I use and I recommend to you is that's fantastic. You don't want to? That's fantastic. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to get really good at doing that in life because there's going to be so many things that you don't want to do. Parents, guess what? Let me ask you a question. When is the best time for your kids to rebel? Is it better that they rebel when they're in college and they're rebelling against the professor? Is it better if they rebel when they're in a marriage? Is it better if they rebel on a traffic stop with a police officer? Is it better if they rebel in the safety of your home? Parents, listen. Stop catastrophizing pushback from your kids. Stop. It depends on the degree of rebellion. Some things aren't okay. Look, here, you're not going to hurt yourself. You're not going to hurt me, and you're not going to tear crap up. Other than that, you want to rebel, knock yourself out. I mean, not literally, but yeah, knock yourself out. Because the safest place for a kid to learn how rebellion works and the physics of life regarding rebellion is in your home. That's the safest place. It is not safe to rebel in a bar with someone you disagree with. I had a patient years ago, sadly, her son got in a rebellion disagreement in a bar. He was a big old boy, so he won that encounter, so he thought. He went home. About midnight or so, he heard a knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. He opened the door, staring down the barrel of a shotgun, which then blew his head off. When is the safest time for your child to rebel? With you. So stop catastrophizing it. Find the value in it. Have a conversation about it. Show your kids what works when they agree and what they disagree. Because they're going to meet, as I said, the devil in real life. And that's what I spent a lot of time teaching my son how to do. How do you handle disagreements? And because how you handle disagreements, and parents, how your children handle disagreements, their very life may depend on it. As my wife reminds me all the time, you're a big old boy, but you're not bulletproof. You're a big old boy, but you're not bulletproof. Well, guys, we're going to be here for about another 28 minutes. If you have questions for our guests, please drop it in the chat. And so I'd like to go to Kat. Dr. Kat, you have folks come to your practice and they're struggling with discipline problems with their kids, and what do you recommend to them?
I'm sorry, what are they struggling with?
You have parents come with you and with all kinds of problems, but what about disciplinary problems? What might you recommend for that?
I think I need someone to help me with my disciplinary problem. We all know the answer, right? Consistency. Consistency is the key. And making sure that they cannot go to the other parent and get approval there, because that's what children like to do. They know exactly how to play one parent against the other. It's like you said, you need to expect different rebellious behaviors at different ages, and it happens with every child. They all do it. Being consistent, and sometimes there's two sides. Like, there's a part of me that says, well, I said no, so it's a no. I do that a lot. And that will work with some children, not with others. I have one that's going to be a lawyer for sure. So I think we just need to have difficult conversations, because sometimes, it's very difficult. I'm very good at giving people advice on how to do things, how to be healthy, maybe how to approach their children. And then I have the same scenario at home and I'm lost, because I'm the one that actually fails at follow through. And I think as parents, we fail at that follow through. We say something and there are consequences for that behavior. But it's too hard to go through those consequences, because children don't realize that sometimes actually it hurts us to follow through, because you don't want to see them, suffer through something, but sometimes they have to. So those are things that I think I see as a parent and as a clinician.
Yeah, the whole suffering thing is a really big one, because parents do that with everything from cookie jars to tragic losses of life. And I've told this story before, but I tell it so often because I want to. If you've had a hurt, if you've had a tragedy, you can't unhurt it, you can't untragic it, you can't go back and it not happen. So by all means, don't waste it. We had a young man who would come to the house with on church get-togethers here. Wonderful, wonderful young man. And he, during the last 4th of July that we had the church party here, he was chasing the young ladies around with bottle rockets. I had to say, hey, stop it. It's not how you get a date. I don't know if Josh started dating Christina because he chased her with bottle rockets, but you don't chase girls around, people around, you put your eye out or whatever. So he was a shock jock. And the church would have a after hours get together at a local restaurant, Hilariously, Slim Chickens asked them not to come back because they ate all their chicken. And they said, "You guys come here, you eat us out of house and home, you eat all our chicken. We can't serve other customers. Please don't come back." It's kind of funny. So they went to Chick-fil-A. In the parking lot of Chick-fil-A was a young man that drove his grandfather's truck to the after hours. When they got finished eating, they walked out to the truck, and his friend got in the driver's seat. His other friend got in the passenger's seat. My son's friend got in the back seat. This is tragic. I say things to make a point. I don't say things to shock or alarm, but this is shocking. In the back seat, he found a .45 caliber weapon. He picked the weapon up. Remember, I said it's a shock jock. And his last words were, "Hey guys, watch this." And he pulled the trigger, and it ended his life. He was trying to be funny. He didn't realize there was a round in the weapon, okay? My son came home, and my wife said, "I think you need to talk to Dad about this." I thought it was a disciplinary issue. It wasn't. He was telling me about the death of his friend, but he really didn't want to talk about it. And I said this to him. I said, "If I could take this away from you, if I could make it where this didn't happen, I would do that. But that would be selfish. That would be wrong for me to do that, because you're going to have to feel every bit of it, and you're going to have to decide what to do with this. This is going to transform your life. You're going to have to decide what to do with this." And I'm here. I'm always here. Anytime you want to talk, I'm always here. By the way, he never did. He dealt with it on his own. We checked in with his friends to make sure, they knew what was going on. They said, "Oh yeah, we got it. We're right there with him. We're supporting him." Had a really supportive friend group, and he dealt with it in the way that he does. And he's become a really strong individual. Parents, when you're trying to keep your kids from experiencing difficult emotions, you're just being selfish. Because who's going to take up that cross? Who's going to take up that job when you're no longer around? Who's going to help rescue them from these difficult thoughts that then manufacture these difficult emotions? Nobody. And then they won't know how to do that. You will have literally handicapped them. And so your greatest ability is your availability. Your greatest gift to them in these moments is your presence. You can't remove it. All you can do is disguise it. All you can do is pretend it didn't happen, and that is not going to help them. Be at their side, be available, and then if they have the personality that reaches out, they'll reach out. It is our job to walk at their side and teach them what? Teach them how to be human. And dealing with tragedy is one of the biggest skill sets of being human. So don't try to, if they need a Band-Aid, get them a Band-Aid. If they need a hug, give them a hug. But you can't rescue them from the physics of life. And on that point, I'd love to go to our good friend here, Cory. And Cory, you've been through a few things. What were some of the ways that people helped you through your journey? Because I think your journey and how people helped you through that is what we can, we can't take people's journey for them. What do you think?
Yeah, man. So this is going to sound really selfish, but nobody helped me through my journey. I helped me through my journey. Me and God, man. And that's one of the things that really changed the way that I parented, by the way. Also, before we go any further, Waylon asked a question earlier, and I think that Emily said something a couple of weeks ago that I saw. I think she may have posted it or something about, that separation with his daughter. Some of the best advice that I got, because I'm also kind of, my youngest daughter's 12 years old, and she's going through some changes, and I feel like our relationship is changing through that. And she said something, just keep showing up steady. Just keep being yourself. That's what she's expecting. And over time, all of that will work out. That was great advice for me, or at least for me, it was great advice. And I think it would be probably pretty good advice for Waylon. But man, what I learned in my coming back from depression and almost committing suicide and all of that is I had never been taught how to think. And so my thoughts were my enemies. Like it was my thoughts were harmful to me. And so um, my parenting on my first child was a lot of rules, and I'm really not a rule person, but like it was a lot of this is what you do and not this is why you do this. And over the years, I've kind of gone to more of I'm trying to teach my kids how to think. And one of the best things that I did with my oldest daughter was tell her, like, I don't really like rules, but I have to have rules to keep you safe. So if you don't like my rules, if you want to be free from my rules, start taking better care of yourself than I'm taking care of you. And then that'll show me, hey, you're responsible enough to make decisions on your own that are going to be good for you. And man, it changed the dynamic of our relationship so much. And she went from a kid who, because of all the rules and regulations that I have, what are you going to do when you have rules and regulations to bump up against? You're going to try to go against them. You're going to try to find ways around them. You're going to get your Instagram account. We did that, by the way. We had that experience, the secret Instagram account. We did that once. And, because I had social media rules and really all of my rules was all based around my fears. And it didn't serve them whatsoever. And so I've just started teaching them how to think. And they've got to see me come through hard times. They've got to see me struggle and work through them. When I tell them something, like they know that that's what it's going to be, but I will tell them why, like my reasoning behind this, oh, okay. It makes sense to them. My son asked me not too long ago, he said, hey Dad, you know how we believe in God and all that? Yeah, I know how we believe in God. And he says, well, do you know that there's other people, they have like different religions and they believe in those too, just like we believe in ours? And I said, yeah, I sure do. He goes, well, how do we know that we're right? I said, we don't. I said, you're going to have to make that decision for yourself, and I think it's a fantastic thing for our kids to learn how to think critically and think for themselves. And I've noticed in my kids that it's given them a freedom to say things around me that I would have never said around my parents, because I didn't want to sound like I was stupid to my dad or be judged or, like I would challenge my son's thoughts, but I won't make him feel like he's small or stupid because of them. He's allowed to have whatever thoughts that he wants to have, and we'll walk through them, He's quite the conspiracy theorist and he's got all of these things, but he can back them up with at least his form of logic. And I just think that like so many of us, even as adults, we believe that we deserve a certain life, but then we have beliefs that get in the way of that, right? And it's because nobody's ever taught us how to think to support the things that we want in life and to support the outcomes that we want in life. And we have to learn how to think through those things logically and empower ourselves. And our kids need to be taught that. Not, it didn't ever benefit me when my parents told me yes or no to something and I didn't know why. Just because you're a parent, what if you're dumb? Like, what if you don't have a clue what you're talking about? There was a lot of times I felt like I was smarter than my parents, and I bet all kids do. And, but if they'd have told me, well, here's the reason that I'm worried about it, and this is what I'm thinking, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense to me. I'm smart enough to understand that. So, I just think it's just really, really important to teach our kids how to think. Just how to think for themselves.
Cory, I found a lot of parents take it personally, thinking that their kids think they're smarter than them. And I challenge
I hope mine aren't.
Do you why would you not want your kids to be smarter than you? I mean,
Yeah.
let's flip on it. Do you want your kids to be dumber than you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm
Well,
teaching my kids to be dumber than I am.
Aren't we bridge builders? Like, don't we want them to be able to go further than where we was able to take them?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I hope that they can take everything that I taught them and say, this was stupid, I need to make better on this one, or this worked really well, let me get better at this one. We're like Josh said, we're all learning through this thing anyways. Like, we don't know how to be parents. We're growing up, teaching our kids is all we're doing. We're learning as we go.
Yeah, and there's no panacea in a self-help book. Trouble Follows. Thank you so much. I believe Dr. Spock did a disservice. Yeah, I agree with you, because opinions on parenting are like belly buttons. Everybody's got one, as they say, And just because it's in a book, folks, doesn't mean it's accurate. Just because it's in a book doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And I'll say one thing is that if you're going to have a call to action, it should be that you should be the giant upon whose shoulders your kids can stand. You should be the giant upon whose shoulders your kids can stand and see farther than you ever did. That's what I want for my son. My son's already smarter than me in so many ways. I know what I know. I've spent a long career, studying psychology and studying philosophy. I know what I know. But I want him to be able to assemble those pieces better than I did and quicker than I did. And that's not based in telling. At this point, it's based in asking better questions. If you want your kids to be smarter, see farther, go further, learn to ask better questions. Look at it like Socrates did, where he didn't believe that he taught people anything. He helped them discover the answers that were already inside of themselves. And sometimes parents get to thinking they're too smart for their own good. Socrates said, I'm only smarter than this man because unlike this man who thinks he knows everything, I know that I know nothing. And so I'm always learning, always learning. My son teaches me something every interaction. And what's the biggest thing he teaches me? If you're listening, parents, not to look like Carol Burnett, who tugged her ear. Some of you guys don't know who Carol Burnett was. Shame on you. But she tugged her ear. Is to, if you'll listen, your kids will tell you how to be in a relationship with them. Your kids will tell you, but it's not going to come in cliff notes. There's no cliff notes for parenting, right? So it's the long game. It's the long conversation. It's a bit of a chess game that lasts their entire life. And, Waylon asked a good question, and again, Waylon, our hearts go out to you. But when you're talking with your kids about things, it's the same thing as if you're talking to a spouse or somebody. What if I ask you guys to come over and Cory and I are going to go to the gym and you got to keep up with us? I promise you I'm going to beat Cory. I'm going to crush him in the gym just because that's the kind of guy I am, But we go to the gym. I mean, can you really keep up with us? Can you? I would say probably not. If you can keep up with you, man, I take that personally. So I've got to go at your speed. Kids, you need to ask yourself, do they have fuel for the journey of this conversation? And they may not have the fuel for a big, deep conversation challenging what they think about religion or what they think about politics. And so it's back to the Seinfeld method. Have a conversation about just having a conversation. Just kick it off, small talk. A lot of parents, the only conversation they want to have is disciplinary. Let me tell you all the things you've done wrong here lately. So Emily, I think that you're a wonderful mom. I can already tell because you're so loving with Hank. I have a bias toward people that have pets. But how do you have conversations with your kids? How do you just have small talk and where they kind of open up? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I love this. My kid's school is actually like 15 minutes away from here. And when we first started going, I was like, oh man, I have to drive 15 minutes, poor me. And then I realized it was like this really sacred time that I could have with them before and after school to ask them questions about their day, ask them the best part and the worst part of their day. Sometimes in the morning we will do just like goal setting or intention setting, especially if the mood has been difficult, because sometimes the mornings are difficult with kids. Or we just use it to do like music education. And I feel like those, like making the most of those little bits of time, making those really meaningful. I also really, I just had a conversation with my youngest yesterday because my oldest had a friend coming over and she was super pissed, and she's my spicy one. She's a lot like me, my younger one. And I'm like I was taking it personally. I was getting pissed, just like you said, taking her bad mood personally, making it mean that I'm doing something wrong because why is my kid not waking up like sunshine and grateful, which is a crazy expectation of anyone. I'm kind of a morning person, but most people are not. And we were able to have this really great conversation because we spend so much time at her soccer games and tournaments. And I'm like, where are we? I like sat down with her. I'm like, I'm going to talk to you like a grown up. I'm like, where do we spend most of our weekends? And she's like, at my soccer games. I'm like, where were we last weekend? She's like, a soccer tournament. I'm like, do you think your sister wants to hang out with the team siblings and be like the mama bear to all the little kids every weekend? And it was like this really awesome opportunity to like get her to consider somebody else's feelings and to practice a little bit of empathy. And it was really cool because I sometimes I try to have these conversations and it's such a miss, you know, and I'm like, well, I did my part. Maybe some of it seeps in, but it was like a cool moment because she was able to kind of, and then what we found was that she was afraid. She was like, well, they're going to leave me out. And I'm like, so instead of screaming at your sister all morning, could you say to her, hey, sometimes when your friend comes over, I feel left out. Like, you know, trying to have these conversations because she's a lot. I always say, like, if you want to find out where you're not healed yet, have children. Because very quickly it's like, wow, I need to hurry up and catch up to this point because I'm like not well here yet. And because they're just, I don't know, I feel like kids are just teaching me like where I need to do work all the time. But it was cool. She was able to communicate that to her sister. We had a really nice day. And sorry, I'm super ADD, so I'm seeing the messages pop up. I'm like,
Oh,
but anyways, I feel like just making those little times alone, like they don't always have to be deep conversations, like you were saying, like just being able to like break down the day or talk about what they have on their plate that day, and then when we are having those deeper conversations, I really want my kids to have empathy. I really want them to consider what it's like for other people and to understand that like your experience is not the only experience in the freaking world. Like everybody's going, that's why people have difference of opinions in politics. They're coming from whatever they learned, whatever they grew up with, whatever like social and financial status they grew up with. And that's why to me, it's like I love a conversation, but I don't know why we argue when we're all just speaking from like where we came from. It's wild. So
yeah,
anyways,
you know,
that was
the
a
argument
lot.
thing again, the best thing that you can do is decatastrophization. Decatastrophization. My dad would call that a $7 word, 7-syllable word.
Good one.
Decatastrophization. Why is it a catastrophe? I mean, for parents out there that catastrophize argument, do you think that your kid, when they leave home at whatever 18 or 20, let's just say 20, average life expectancy, I don't know, 78, so that's over a half a century. Is it your belief, parents, that your kid will spend the next half century never arguing again with anyone? Now, if that's your expectation, then yeah, nip it in the bud. You know, the Barney Fife method, Andy Griffith. Nip it in the bud. You know, you guys Google Andy Griffith if you don't know who that is. Barney Fife, great actor, great character, Don Knotts. On the other hand, it is your belief that probably some of these issues, which way should the toilet paper be turned on the spool? Well, of course,
That was not up for debate.
it's
Yeah,
tab
there's only
out.
one right answer there. That's clear.
My wife would disagree. I think it's tab out. She think it's tab in. I'm in the bathroom at 2 a.m. like a hamster, you know, rolling in and nothing's coming off. You know, she just doesn't get it. I actually had a patient one time that was he provided services for buildings. He said, let me just tell you, and you can share it with your wife, it is in our government contract that all toilet paper shall be put on the spool tab out. It's literally in the contract. I said, I knew I was right. See there? I knew I was right. My wife still disagrees. What does the government know? You know. So at any rate, your kids are going to confront these things. You know, instead of teaching them not to argue, teach them how to argue in a healthy way. Argument is just a difference of opinion. You know, teach them how to do that in a healthy way. Oh yeah, Trouble Follows said The Incredible Mr. Limpet. Yep. Don Knotts, great movie. But I do have a question for the panel here. Right after that goes off screen. Trouble, thank you for being here. Creon, thank you for being here. Monette, and Waylon and Hitch and so many others. But here's a question for the panel. I'm going to read it because we're going to start closing up in just a few minutes. Creon says he'd love to hear you guys differentiate how a father and a mother should parent and how single parents should do it too. Yeah, we can do that in a future episode. We can do it right now. What do you got? You guys have any feedback for Creon about what's the difference between how a father and mother parent, or is there any difference? What do you think? Anybody can take that.
I would say it's not about father and a mother, it's about a situation. There are times when you have to be more nurturing, and there are times when you have to be more, not as nurturing, let's put it this way.
More father-like.
Yes, exactly. And I think, sure, we do tend to fall into roles, especially if there's a father and a mother. You know, children they actually know who's going to respond to which situation. I really think it's more situational than necessarily role playing. And they'll know, like, dad will get mad if I do this, but mom won't. So maybe I'll go to mom first, and then maybe mom is going to ease up into this conversation with dad. So, and especially if you're a single parent, you wear both hats. So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, well, somebody else, what do you think?
That's hard to disagree with that. Like, it's very situational, not every situation calls for the same plan of action, and so it's just that's when you get to think as a parent, huh? Like, okay, what version of me shows up right now?
Yeah, by the way, it's okay, parents. It's okay to be confused. Stop beating yourself up over being confused. Listen, I've got 2 PhDs in psychology. I'm regularly confused. Just ask my wife; she'll testify to that. Confusion is the edge of knowledge. Confusion is part of the journey to knowledge. But Josh and Emily, what do you think? What recommendation might you have to Creon about how single parents should do it too? Differentiation between how fathers and mothers parent. What are your thoughts?
Well, I can speak for myself. So I had 2 daughters to my first wife, and then we got divorced when my daughters were young. And we had split 50-50 custody. And um, there was a lot of times where I had to play a dual role, where I had to be the father. Well, I was the father, but I also had to sometimes be the nurturing mother side of things, which was challenging. Um, and because I didn't know how to do that. I know how to be a father. I was learning how to be a father, let alone being a mother on top of it, at least giving that attribute as far as care for my daughters. But they would spend half their time with me, and there was times that they needed a mom, and I had to be that support for them because their mom wasn't there. And so that was really challenging. Um, but it taught me a lot too, and it gave me a lot of respect for what a mother does. So if I can just be honest, it gives me a lot of respect in what mothers do. Um, but we try to parent the best we can. But for single parents out there, sometimes you have to play that dual role, and be, as a parent, consciously aware the difference between what a father and a mother dynamically should be. So I don't know. That's my opinion.
I love that. Yeah, thank you, thank you, Emily. Any thoughts on that? And we'll begin to wrap up the show.
Yeah, that's such a tough question because like I don't know I'm not a father. You know what I mean? I'm never going to be a father. I can only speak from being a mother. I think I have so much respect for single parents, both fathers and mothers, because it is a huge ask. Like what a huge responsibility. Um, I get, and it also, this is like a whole nother conversation. It also brings up like what we view gender roles as. And so like, there is this part of me that like, just immediately when I think of the father role, I think of the disciplinarian. Can you give me 5 minutes, honey? Mom life. Um, I think of like the disciplinarian, I think of the protector, and, but then I feel that too as a mother. Like I have that mama bear thing where I'm like, don't F with my kid. You know what I mean? Um, so I don't know if I have like an appropriate answer for that other than, I think Josh said it well, like being the soft side and the study side. I don't know. It's all hard.
It is, yeah. Embrace the suck, embrace the difficulty. I would say, and we'll start wrapping up here. We'll go one last round. Ask you guys where folks can get in touch with your content, and maybe a mindset boost for parents going into the week. So, I love what you all said. I love what Cory said about it depends on the situation. Dr. Cat depends on the situation. Josh and Emily kind of talked about that too, but it really does. It's really choosing the proper tool. Is this a situation where a didactic approach is best? And, here you have a problem, I have three solutions. Go away, do well, pop, 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 problem solved, more of a teaching role. Just do this. Husbands, fathers make that mistake a lot when they think that their wife or their kid just want a solution when what they really want is processing. They just want to have a conversation. Look, one of your most powerful skill sets is this. Watch closely, folks. This is why it's on video. This. See, you don't have to have all the answers. Nod your head. Engage in the conversation and be present. Let them talk through their thoughts, because that's the most important thing in life, is helping your kids. One of the top parenting skills is teaching your kids metacognition, the ability to think about their thinking. They can't learn to think about their thinking if you're always trying to do their thinking for them. Give them space to think about their thinking. Use active listening skills. So that's one, is that, be with them, not, yeah. Let's get this over with. I got to get back to the game or whatever. The other three magic words, and you can write these down, guys, in case you forget them. The words are YEAH. In Arkansas, we call that word yeah. Dad, I'm really struggling with this. Yeah. See how those two go together? It's rocket science. It's very complicated. Okay. And active listening skills. You don't have to give the answer. You don't have to have some elegant parenting equation. Just be present in the conversation. I tell this last story a lot. I'll tell it really quickly, that a mental health secretary or secretary in the mental health clinic, maybe she said this to me as a hint thing. She said, I remember working with this clinician, and when you talk to him, you believe that you're the only person in the universe. Wow. Do I not do that? Maybe I don't do that. Maybe I need to learn how to do that. This has been, I don't know, probably 25 years ago or something like that. Develop the skill set that when your kids talk to you, they believe they're the only person in the universe. To do that, you got to make some sacrifices. Put your freaking phone down or turn it off. My wife will say, it's not like you're running a small country. And she's right. Turn off the TV. Don't mute it. Turn it off. Find the off button. A lot of you dads out there, you don't realize this, but your TV has an off button. If you can't find it, just unplug the darn thing. Turn stuff off and hyper focus on the kid in front of you. There's so many parents that I have dealt with in my career of, nearly 40, well, it has been 40 years in behavioral health, that would give anything to have one more minute with their kids. One more minute. So don't waste a one. You'll regret those minutes wasted. Even the tough ones, the parenting moments that seem catastrophic and tough now, I promise you, when you're old and toothless and maybe laying in long-term care in a nursing home, you'll cherish even those tough times. So don't waste a moment. Let's go around the room. Folks, Dr. Cat, where can folks find most of your content?
Probably X is the best place, at KL Veritas. That's usually where I'll post the most.
At KL Veritas on X, often in a debate in one of Hitch Slap's spaces. which I
Yes.
love to hear. But thank you, Dr.
I would
Cat.
like to close my part by saying EQ is not fake. Hit slap, and I still love you.
Hitch is gonna need a Xanax after listening to all this today
I know
because
we're
he
gonna have
can't
to
he
like.
can't speak up and disagree. He can post things. Hitch is a dear friend of I think everybody on the panel. Josh, where can folks get in touch with you and find most of your content?
Uh, just hit on my profile, Josh underscore Sty. Uh,
On X.
but on X, yeah, that's the best place to find me. I got a new website rolling out pretty soon here, uh, on my music stuff. So we'll get there in a minute.
Is it Viking music or is it some other type of music?
Oh, it's a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to be
Whole
really
bunch of
fun.
stuff.
And I will say this as an ending final thought. I love what Corey was saying, challenging and contradicting. I love challenging and contradicting my daughters, um, and getting them to think for their own. Even if we agree on the topic, I'm still going to challenge you.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that way? Christina and I did, not bottle rockets, but Christina and I did meet over fireworks. I'm a pyrotechnician, and she was working on the theater crew, and so that's how we kind of really met.
How
Um,
romantic when Dr. Christine and Josh met, the fireworks went off. How cool is that?
absolutely, absolutely.
And Corey, Corey, how do folks get in touch with you? Where do they find most of your content?
Just find me here on X. It's Cory on X. Pretty easy to find me. It's the only place I hang out. I'll tell you this: one of the best things that ever happened to me was getting curious about the way my kids think. You know that you're talking about that attention span stuff. I would always try to race to give them the answers, and I realized like I wanted to teach them how to think, but giving them the answers and the way that I'm processing thought isn't always the way to do that. And I learned to start getting curious and not asking them questions that make them feel trapped, but just letting them go and ramble on. Like you said, sometimes the surface level conversations teach you a lot about how they process things and how they think. But just get curious. Just get curious about your kids and what they're thinking and what they're talking about, and they'll start sharing with you. And if you're listening and not listening to respond, but listening to because you're curious and to understand. And I'm no parenting expert whatsoever, by the way, but it's just seemed to really serve my household quite a bit. So
I
just be
love that.
curious.
Thoughts are like diamonds. You don't find diamonds just in jewelry stores. Diamond comes from mines, and mining it calls for digging. And so join with your kids in digging down to these thoughts. It's a messy job, but that's what you signed up for. Emily, where can folks find you and most of your content, and what might you leave our gang with today going into the week? Just a positive mindset on parenting.
You can find me on, I can't call it X, on Twitter. For your Twitter. Sorry, guys.
Emily's a holdout. Yeah, not.
Yeah, I'm a little stubborn. No, Emily underscore tweets. That's probably the best place to connect. I think, gosh, what would I leave you with for the week? I would say one of the greatest piece of advice that some random old lady gave me many, many years ago. She said, pick your battles, but win the battles that you pick. And there's been so many times I've been in the middle of an argument with my kids. I'm like, I don't even care. Why am I arguing about this? And it's like, let it go. Give yourself grace. Give your kids grace. Apologize to them when you're wrong so that they know how to do the same, because we're not perfect. And I also sometimes like to use the rule of 5. It's like with my kids and with myself, like, is this going to matter in 5 seconds? Probably. Is it going to matter in 5 minutes? Maybe. 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months. I mean, that's how I can gauge how big of an issue it really is. And usually like it's like 5 minutes and I'm done, because I'm a quick getter over of things. So yeah, and just be nice to yourself. Like Cory is talking about, our thoughts are so important. The way we speak to ourselves is so important, because that's literally how our kids are going to speak to themselves. So if I'm constantly talking crap to myself out loud or to myself, they're going to pick up on that. I don't want my kids to talk to themselves that way. We have a rule in our house, like the same way, like we're not allowed to say mean things about others. You're not allowed to say mean things about yourself. It's not allowed. Like I treat it the exact same way. So that's it.
I love it. I love it. Years ago, I stopped telling myself you're stupid. I would drop things, and I said, "Oh, you're so stupid." Don't do that. Don't do that. Just say, "Oh," or as my high school
Oopsie.
English
Yeah.
teacher would say milkshake. You drop something. Oh, milkshake. Go ahead, Emily. You,
Oh no,
you,
that's
you
good.
had
Yeah.
something followed up there. Parents, go
No.
out there, as Emily said, be kind to yourself, speak words of life to yourself. As I said earlier, be the shoulders on which your children can stand to see farther than you ever could. And that is the first step, the biggest step to great parenting. I want to thank Dr. Kat, Josh, Emily, Cory. You guys are fantastic. Open invitation anytime you guys have a spare Monday. You don't got to wait on an invitation. Send me a DM. Hey, I got some time Monday morning, and I want to say thank you so much to Emily for being on the broadcast here. It was like a little after 4 a.m. her time when she was in her vehicle to log in and click the link. So just a top-notch young lady, a wonderful mom, including a wonderful dog mom. Our regards to Hank, and thank you guys so much. Have a great week. We have a space coming up here, Midday Mindset, in about 3 hours and 20 minutes. And it is, we do that every day at 12 o'clock, so join that. Also, hop over to Mindset Masterclass, school.com/mindset, SKOOL.com/mindset. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.